As the report shows, despite the financial crisis, the food crisis, the fuel crisis, the world is still making progress on reducing poverty, albeit more slowly.
Secretary General, you touched on many things, but obviously here there is nothing mentioned on the effect of disregard of human rights and the spread of wars in many parts of the world with regard to spread of poverty. Also, what's the impact of aging societies, especially in the north of the globe, on the economic growth?
In fact, a human rights issue is a cross-cutting issue. Even though you may not see any agenda as such, human rights. Human rights is a part of all of our life. And therefore, you will see that the United Nations will continuously to promote and protect human rights. On these issues of vulnerable societies, vulnerable states, there is a clearly some disregarding or not properly protecting human rights issues. That we would never lose our sight on this, including the aging issues in many parts of the developed world. These need some broader and comprehensive approaches. Yes.
On the same subject, and also the issue of war in the last 10 years since the Millennium Goals were set, I mean, we have witnessed a lot of wars. I don't see any studies telling how much this hampered your efforts in order to alleviate the poverty and improve the quality of life for the inhabitants of this planet. I don't see any real studies, in fact. It seems war budgets have been increased, whereas aid budgets have remained stagnant, and it seems you are ignoring this totally, the element of wars.
Mr. Sachs.
Let me not ignore it, because you're absolutely correct. The military spending worldwide is on the order of $1.5 trillion. The development budget is a little over $100 billion. This is a rather shocking misallocation. And it is many of these wars, I should say, are essentially wars of extreme poverty and deprivation. It's not a coincidence that wars are taking place in places like Afghanistan and elsewhere where people are impoverished. And if we don't direct efforts towards sustainable development in those locations, conflict is much more likely. And I think that the underinvestment in development in impoverished places is a huge and tragic loss of opportunity for peace. This is true throughout Central Asia. It's true in the Horn of Africa, where you have some of the world's poorest people and most conflict-prone regions, where you can see that hunger and lack of access to water and environmental threats are absolute drivers of conflict, without question. And then the troops come in and they don't solve anything. And they can't solve anything. And they end up spending 100 times more than you would spend on a development program. So I think that this trade-off is not just a moral trade-off, it's a most practical issue. That unless we invest in development in impoverished places, you end up bearing hugely higher costs of violence and conflict. And it's a miscalculation that's made repeatedly by the politicians who somehow see issues through the lens of politics and security, but not through the lens of poverty and hunger.
So you are blaming the countries who are waging these wars on a lot of poverty that's prevailing in many parts of the world.
What I'm saying is that we need to address the poverty if we want sustainable peace. Armies cannot bring sustainable peace. Only development can. And development is an effort that must be targeted and focused with investments, with the power, with roads, with clinics, with schools, with water, with agricultural investments. That's the path to peace in an impoverished place. And those are investments that fortunately are a tiny fraction in the cost of what we routinely spend on the military. And so if we went the way of peace, we'd save a lot of money and we'd get much better results.
Also didn't ignore the war and the effect of conflicts on poverty. And also we try to address that within, of course, the limits of the MDG framework, where we have a list of official indicators on the basis of which we produce the report. But we've included and we collaborate with the UNHCR to put together data on the number of people affected by conflicts, and then we present the updated figures, and we try to explain it and give a strong message in that sense of the link between conflicts and poverty.
And also of some resolution from the United States and Security Council. I mean, they failed to resolve a lot of conflicts, and they aren't they supposed to be blamed for lack of peace in the world?
I think the underinvestment in peace is profound and very much an area where we could have very high returns in this world if we went in that direction.
Okay, Rhonda.
Do you find the United Nations is a good investment for peace? Has it been able to resolve any conflict since its inception?
Of course. Of course, and it's vital, and it's the one place where we have the world talking to each other. Thank God.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.